No big bean and cheese burrito es papa fritos es muy grande el puto dinero. Thank you for tuning into the Blended Life Live. I'm Eric. This is my wife, Julie.
Your embarrassed wife. Like, are we done? Can we start over?
Nope, we're live.
I don't even know what just happened.
What's tonight's podcast about?
Burritos and tacos. I
Burritos,
don't know.
tacos. Ooh, and I would like some pizza too, please.
You had pizza for breakfast.
And lunch.
Dear Lord. So tonight we're going to talk about a bunch of different things. We're going to talk about counseling, marriage counseling. We're going to talk about what we learned in our previous marriages. And we're going to talk about what we wish we would have known before entering in our marriages, since there's been so many.
All right, for one of us.
Wow.
All right. Well, let's get this party started.
Yeah, so hi, everyone.
Hello, Instagram. Hello, YouTube. And
YouTube
hello,
and all of our podcasters out
Yeah.
there. Real quick,
Yes.
I would love for people to comment or email, or if you can create a poll on our video later. I want to know what people think about us doing this live, if it even matters to people or not.
Okay.
Because I will say this is going to be our last podcast live at this time for a while.
For a little while, yeah. And then also, let's just make it even crazier. And what time works better for you?
Yeah, I mean,
We're in the business of catering too.
well, our lives are ever changing, as everyone knows in your own lives. Like, things come up. It's a new school year. We have new schedules, new activities, new jobs, so yeah, I just wanted to throw that out there. So this is the last 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time live on this channel podcast.
Yeah.
Anyway,
'Kay.
so lessons we've learned from our previous marriages. What are some lessons that you've learned?
Ooh, you want the serious version or the not so serious version? Because I've got a lot of both.
Why am I not surprised?
Right? No, you know what? Something that you brought up the other day when we were in marriage counseling,
Yes.
which we're going to talk about later, right?
Yeah, we're gonna wrap it up.
Okay, which is a lot of fun. You mentioned it in marriage counseling, or maybe she did, our counselor, but I've learned to shut my mouth and listen. I like to listen. I don't know if I like to. I've been trained to listen. And, sometimes you just need to vent. And as a husband, I'm always trying to fix stuff for you.
But we're not talking about our current marriage.
But this is something I learned in my previous marriage. I didn't listen enough. I was always trying to fix. I was always trying to solve problems and defend or offend or, whatever it is. It was usually offending. But
Defense was your offense.
Yeah, but something I really I brought away from my previous marriage is really just learning to listen to you when you have something to complain about or vent about or, whatever it may be. I've learned to listen to you.
Yeah.
So, and I don't think I was that good at that in my previous marriage.
No.
And I think that helps our marriage a lot now.
Did it cause a lot of problems?
Yeah, in hindsight, yes. Because I was always trying to fix that problem or,
Yeah.
get in on a fight that didn't need to be a fight.
Get in on a fight. What does that mean, to get in on a fight that didn't need to be a fight?
Well, the women race like to complain about the women race. And sometimes you just want to complain and be heard rather than the male race complaining about the women race.
Oh my gosh. So you would jump in and talk about, jump into a fight that wasn't yours?
Yeah, it was just one of those unnecessary things that didn't need to happen.
Do you feel like it was a protective thing, though, for your...
Yeah, oh, totally. I was coming out of a place of protection and a place of trying to fix.
Yeah.
Right? So,
how do you protect your wife? Do you feel like you were a good protector?
Which one?
I know, you've had so many.
I know, a whole whopping 2.
But really, as a husband, and in your previous marriage specifically, do you feel like you were a protector?
Yeah, I've always been. That's just my role,
And so what does that look like, to protect your wife?
To protect is to side whether it's the right side or not. you know?
I don't understand.
Okay, so if you are in one of those arguments or fights, you try to find, um, you know, the good and the positive of what your spouse is doing. So I'm always trying to find something. If you're having an issue at work, or you're having an issue in a day-to-day life battle, I'm not fighting against you. I'm not pointing out everything that you're doing wrong.
Mm.
Even if I'm seeing some stuff, I'm trying to side with you. Or in this case, if or as we're talking about, if you are doing something I'm not agreeing with, I will just listen more. I won't sit there and point it out. But also, being on the protector side, I will find a way to point out what isn't going on, what I feel like, hey, look at this part of it, without calling you out, without making an issue out of it and
So
us
you
getting
try
into a
to
fight.
more like align
Yeah.
with your spouse, whoever your spouse is at the time.
At the time, yeah, I'm the one to talk.
All right. What other like marriage life lessons did you learn? Like what did you come away from your first marriage thinking, I'm going to do this better this time, or I should have done that better, or I need to be more of this, less of this, or what would you tell people to do or not to do? All the wisdom
Um,
here and now.
One thing that I think is big that has grown on me, and a big reason why we're sitting here, is I think that family is number one. Whereas in my previous marriage, obviously I cared a ton about my family, and I was all about my family. But when things weren't perfect in the way I loved them to be going, I had other hobbies. I had a lot more hobbies back then than I do now. So I would find myself, wrenching on a vehicle, building something. I spent a lot more time out doing stuff than now. I spend a lot more time, even if I'm by myself, working on stuff for the family. Today, I spent half my day working on our dishwasher.
If you guys could see our kitchen right now, which is directly behind where this camera is, we have dirty dishes all over our countertops.
Which is totally abnormal for us.
It's driving me crazy. I'm looking at the camera, speaking to you, and I see.
Can you make a pirate joke out of that, please? A pirate walked into a bar with a plate on his belt. And the bartender said, "Sir, you have a plate on your belt." And what the pirate say? "Arr, it's driving me nuts." Okay, whatever. I tried.
Oh, geez. Did you learn not to tell stupid jokes in your first marriage?
Nope.
Or was that appreciated and I'm just...
Yep.
Oh, well...
Just kidding. No one appreciates my jokes.
That's not true.
Comment below if you appreciate my jokes.
Our dogs really like your
Thumbs
jokes.
up. No, our dogs are nowhere to be found. They're like, oh, Dad's telling a joke. We're out of here.
Yeah, so, okay, focusing more on family and...
You just call me a moron?
Yeah, you're not a moron.
Oh, thanks.
But I think that's a really good point because I think that it's, being a family man is a mindset.
Yeah, absolutely.
And so that's a really great point you made, that it isn't just that you have to be there in the moment,
right,
but that when everyone else is gone, your mindset is still family man. You're a husband, you're a dad before you're,
Yeah. And I think a lot of that just comes with age and wisdom. You know? It's stuff that you start to realize, like, hey, if I'm not doing this stuff now, I'm never going to get this time back. This is what really matters in life. And I think it takes going through a lot of the other stuff to really get to that point. At least it did for me. Some people that might just come real naturally too. And like I said, I was always all about my family, but really just buckling down and making it front and center.
I'm totally going to call you out.
Oh.
But that's fine. You call me out. That's what we do here. But I notice like one of your knee-jerk reactions when things aren't going good, or if we're having a conversation you don't like, or, that you don't feel like it's going to go anywhere, or you're upset or you're angry, your reaction is to withdraw. Like your reaction. Oh my
I'll
gosh, I
go
was
eat.
like, really?
Yeah,
But like you're in a, so I could see how that is kind of how you're built, where some people like the fight. So
yeah.
they get
I don't.
upset and they jump into the
Yeah,
fire.
I don't love to fight.
You retreat.
Yeah, and I think the reason for me retreating is I need time to think about it. I need time to process.
Mm-hmm.
Where, as I'm able to process those jokes really quickly, true subjects like life,
Real life.
life, yeah,
Not so much.
real life subjects, I need time to think about because I don't want the reaction that you give me when I make a joke, where you're just like, this guy's a moron. I want to come back to it genuinely invested and having, figured out my part in it. And am
Yeah.
I even right? Am I even right? Am I wrong?
Yeah, but I mean, do you even feel like
I thought you were gonna say lift, bro, and I was like, that was like so 3 years ago.
I have no idea what you're talking
Anyways.
about? Yeah.
The podcasters are laughing.
Okay. Go podcasters who get the inside joke.
Yeah.
Um,
Do I even
I don't even remember what I was gonna say now.
really
Yeah.
attention span like this?
I don't know. I do remember now. So do you feel like when, because for me that doesn't work. Like if we're in a conversation and you abandon me, and,
Right.
That's just how I'm built. Like
Right.
I take it as you're abandoning me. That's how I take it.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
I know
yeah,
that's
yeah,
not your intention,
Yeah.
but in that moment, that's how, and that becomes from, so much of my past and where I come from.
Yeah.
So, but so in your previous marriage, you were allowed to go off and go rogue and do your own thing.
Allowed to?
You just did it?
I just did it.
Okay, so whatever. However you did it. But did you ever circle back around and like on your own initiate a follow-up conversation? Like if a conversation doesn't go well and you say, like you said,
Yeah.
you
I see
go
where
away
you're going with this.
so you can process.
Yeah.
You need to think.
Yeah.
I just had a conversation about this with
At lunch?
someone today.
Mm-hmm.
Do you ever initiate? So that's your excuse why you leave, and it's a valid excuse and a
Right.
very reasonable one.
Yeah,
but it
I see your
only
side of it,
works
too.
if you come back around and therefore finish said conversation.
Yeah. Okay. No, I see where you're going. Yeah. You know what? And that was so long ago. I don't remember if I did. But I feel like if the conversation does come back up, then I'm at least on board with it, and I'm like, I know my place in this.
Yeah.
Whereas sometimes when it happens, I'm like, I feel crazy. You look crazy. You sound crazy. You know what I mean? Like, it's like nothing's right at the time.
Yeah.
I just need to process all of this.
Yeah.
So,
Do you think that in your previous marriage you led your
what is this,
family?
21 questions?
Well, I'm the only one asking
Yeah.
questions.
Okay.
You've yet to ask me anything.
I'm waiting to hear what your changes are. But did I leave my family?
No, did you feel like, because I think that a lot of traditional families, right? The man is the head, the man's the leader. And we can talk about that later in a blended family if that's really how it is. But do you feel like you were a leader for your family back then? Do you feel like you led them in, spiritually, financially, moral?
Yeah.
I don't know. You know what I mean? Do you feel
but
like
not the way that I feel I probably should have.
okay,
I
talk
always,
about that. How should you have?
I feel like I wasn't back then. I wasn't spiritually in tune like I am now, and I still don't feel like I'm at the place where I should be now. I feel like we're constantly growing, and I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I'm comfortable where I am right now, but do I want to be in the same place in 10 years from now? No. I
We
want to
hope not,
continue.
yeah.
I want to. Well,
Sorry, whoops. What did that just
call
come
me
out? I
out,
thought
Mike.
I was
Yeah.
thinking it. I didn't know it was
Mhm.
actually saying it.
right.
Anywho,
But I'm comfortable where I
Oopsies.
am now. But 10 years from now, I'd like to be in a different place. Versus then, I was spiritually inverted, if that makes sense. I didn't like going to church, and I think a big problem with that was I didn't have a home church that I loved. I didn't have a congregation. I didn't have friends and people around me that were in the same mindset.
Yeah.
And the stuff that was around me wasn't right. And I grew up in a Christian church and a Christian family. So the mindset was always there.
You had all the seeds planted.
Yeah, and I was a believer, and
Yeah.
but in such a inverted way
Yeah.
that most people didn't know or care, or and I don't think that's all right. I think when you have a family, if that's your core value and your belief, I think that needs to come out. And I'd have to say, going through the divorce process really brought a lot of that out in me.
Yeah.
And one of the great things that I took away from my ex-wife is during that, she not forced, but really
During your divorce?
kind of leading up to, it was a really weird, awkward time, but leading up to that, it got brought out of me,
Do you want to know something interesting?
Let's hear it.
Well, this is just gonna, tangle our little web.
Okay.
But a lot of people, our listeners, don't know that your ex-wife and I were friends-ish.
Yeah.
And so it's interesting because I remember this time
Okay.
in your life because her and I would have coffee.
Mm.
And she
Vaguely remember that.
Yeah. We hung out a few times, and she would express to me how much she wished that you would go to church with her, that you would become a man of faith. And she was like desperate for it.
Yeah.
And I was kind of in the same place with my ex-husband as she was.
Yeah.
Like I've always really yearned. So something that I've always yearned for in a marriage and never really had was a spiritual equal, that we are both running after God together. Yeah. I've always really wanted that. Like your ex actually hand wrote me Bible studies. I think I have 2 somewhere about this. Like what she got, she took the time, and so I know she was really craving that, and I know that you were kind of resistant.
I was a day late and a dollar short on all of that.
Well,
I tried at the end.
Yeah.
And I think I really just rushed into it, and I'm like, here it is, here it goes.
Yeah.
But like I said, day late, dollar short, But
also your personality is, if you push you to do something,
that's exactly.
I'm also like, just knowing you, being your wife, the more that I want you to do something, I think you are built. Your natural reaction is to be like, nope.
If it's what all the cool kids are doing and it's the thing to do, and you're telling me this is what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So yeah, fun fact, I don't know if I've ever mentioned this on our podcast, but
what's up?
Speaking of all the cool kids doing things, most people that know me, I'm almost 38 years old, never tasted alcohol in my life. Never tasted a sip of wine, never drank a beer, never had a sip of beer,
not a champagne toast.
Nope, never smoked, never done any type of drugs.
You straight edge, everyone.
But I don't also, that's like a cool kid, not cool kid. But
it's the definition,
it's like
I'm sorry.
It's a thing to go do, And I guess, to a sense, whatever. But again, like I don't like the label.
Yeah. I know, it just turns you off. Like even if you're willing to do something, it doesn't bug you. The minute somebody wants it from you, it totally turns you off to the idea.
Yeah.
Which is really hard as a wife. It's really hard to be a wife and like have a need to be met, or you really want something out of someone. Like I really want something to be a priority to you.
Yeah, but you've learned how to finesse that out of me. And I've also softened over the years as far as that goes, to where I see if you have a craving or a need, or, I pay attention a lot to you and what you say and what you write on Blended Life. You know what I mean? Like I read into everything that you put out there, because
interesting.
A lot of times we don't have those conversations. There's been times where I've read into things so much where I'm like,
it causes problems, people.
Well,
I'm like, some things don't even know about.
Yeah, but there's sometimes there'll be things that you'll type, or at least a lot it used to, where I'm like, why are you going to put that out there? Like, we just had an argument about this. And then you're either completely off topic or you're just brilliant at flipping the script. But there's a lot of times where you're like, it's not even about that. It's about this in 2014. And, this happened with.
Well, I think it gets confusing because my mission has always been because I have been divorced twice, and I am hell bent on finding a like I have a forever love now, but that is I've always been
Did
super
you say for now?
for no I have now. But my point is that I have such a yearning for a lifetime connection with someone, and
You'll find your someone.
but my point is that relationships have always really interested me, and I have always believed, which is why we're here now, and it has caused problems in our marriage, if I'm being honest. It's
This?
no, but what you speak of, like what I
Oh,
write
yeah,
about, because
right.
some of what I'm always putting out there, like, this is what I've learned. Like, don't do this.
Right.
You know, this is how you should treat someone. Here's like, avoid my mistakes, avoid our mistakes, avoid past mistakes.
Yeah.
And I think, when there's a past there, it's easy for you to read into
Yeah, always.
stuff
But
that's not about you at all.
It's really helped me to slow down and not jump on stuff. And I think that's a habit that I brought over from previous marriage, is jumping on the defense and being like, what, why are we talking about this? Why are you typing about this? Whatever it may be.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be that,
Well, and it's a bigger picture.
Well, you know what?
Like,
and even
have
if
a
it
heart
is
to help people.
right, and even if it is you venting about something that is currently happening in our lives, and you've assured me 20 times that it isn't, and I don't think we've talked about that in a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long
years.
time.
But I think that's something that has helped me just to realize, like, hey, this might just be a way of you venting. And at the end of the day, no one really knows what's going on behind closed doors, right?
That's true. And also, like, I love you, but it's not all about you.
There's always a but. Why is there always a but?
Like, you love me, but it's
Yeah.
not, it's about us,
It is.
or it's about, like, when I share my heart,
Right.
it is sharing about my past, and so it's kind of, it's a learning curve, and a lot of people, what I've learned from doing this is that a lot of people don't like having their lives out there.
Right.
Really, truly don't.
Yeah.
And that makes people very uncomfortable.
And I'm kind of the same way, whereas, like, I've got an Instagram page, I don't have a Facebook page, a personal one. And it's just because there's sometimes you want to put stuff out there. There's sometimes where you want to yell from a mountaintop, but there's other times where I'm like, I really don't want people to know.
So talk about that with your previous marriage, because you used to have Facebook.
I did.
Did you learn lessons about social media from your previous marriage?
Everyone's learned lessons from social media.
Well, tell it, because some people haven't,
You know what? I wasn't on Facebook for a really long time. I was actually on Facebook kind of at the very end of our marriage to a little bit afterwards. And that was kind of to keep a tab on what really was happening, because a lot of stuff happened behind closed doors on Facebook that I won't go into on here. But Facebook can be used for good or bad, which I think everyone knows this, right?
Yes, it's the number one stalking site.
And I think stalking, whatever.
I mean, employers even do that. They
you
go,
can literally use it for anything.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, my buddy Chris and I, who's probably watching right now, has he waved yet?
No.
Wave, Chris. Chris and I actually coached a couple people not that long ago, literally in the same weekend as we were talking about them applying for jobs. That if you basically, if you have a Facebook page and you're trying to apply for a job, you need to really just polish that up.
Absolutely.
And clean that up as good as possible. But that also translates to divorce and blended families and all that. So if you've got someone on the other side of the fence looking over at you, you don't need to be out there bragging about what you're doing or what you're eating or where you are or what you have, whatever it is.
Or the 10 shots you did at lunch.
Any of that. People are going to see that,
Totally.
and it's going to be used against you. And I know I gave you guys all my highlighter story, Hit Her and Hitler highlighter story. I'm going to bring those on the show one day, and I'm going to show them to everyone.
Okay.
Because they are somewhere. And then they'll get used against me again in court. And no, I'm just kidding. We're pretty worked out now where we don't go to court. We haven't been to court in years, which is an awesome place. But going back to my subject, if you can keep yourself out of court by avoiding putting this garbage out on social media, do it.
Yeah.
And if that means deleting your Facebook page or your Instagram page or Twitter, whatever it may be, then do it. Because
Yeah.
at the end of the day, it's going to save you so much hassle. And it's not just you that it saves the hassle, it saves your kids the hassle. It saves your whole entire family.
Yeah.
The
Did you
issues.
guys have issues over social media? Was that ever an issue
Yep.
for you guys?
Oh yeah.
Was there jealousy?
Yeah, and it's kind of what really, at the end of the day, I mean, it's really what was the cliff, the jumping off for
The end?
the complete end of our marriage.
So how does that translate to now you're married to me and I have, multiple for blended life
Yeah.
and personal,
Yeah.
multiple Facebooks,
You and I-
multiple Instagram, Twitter.
You have such a different personality,
All
but
the
you and I
things.
have such a different relationship than I did before.
Mm.
And
Did you
I don't
always
have- I don't-
trust your ex-wife from day one?
I thought I did.
Like when you
But-
guys got married,
Yeah.
trust wasn't an issue till the end.
Yeah, but I also didn't keep real close tabs. I'm a trusting person. And I think I trust a lot because I just believe or trust that people will trust me. And I
Right.
always try to do right by everyone.
Yeah.
Even as I'm going through a divorce, I was always trying to do the right thing. It may
Yeah.
not have always been the right thing, but I always tried to do the right thing.
Yeah, you're always well-intentioned. I would agree with that.
Yeah, I try to be.
Unless you're joking around and then all bets are off. So Kalia, hey.
Hi, Kalia.
She asks, one of her comments here, her only comment here is, do you feel that in a blended family, when one person is very spiritual and the other person is not, how do you deal with that?
Pray for
I
the
feel
other
like
person.
that was your marriage.
Yeah. And I'm only saying that because I have heard this from everyone else. Pray for the other person.
Mm-hmm.
Don't be pushy. And because I was getting pushed into it, I was walking backwards. I was like, nope, staying out of this, staying out of this, staying out of this. Now, my beliefs internally didn't go down any bit.
Which, can we just talk about how, like, I'm so sorry, but I'm going to say how immature that is.
What's that?
Like, if your wife is asking you, I mean, you can't make someone want spiritual stuff, but the fact that somebody wants not just somebody, but like your wife has a good request that aligns with your beliefs and you're like pushing back for something that she needs so much.
Yes, but it's the
Like-
way that it's gone about. It's the way that it
Were
gets
you shamed?
rubbed in your face. And, yeah, and really, I wouldn't say I was shamed.
Mm-hmm.
I would say there was no consideration of like trying. It was either jump in or nothing at all. So it wasn't like, hey, let's talk about this a little bit.
I see.
The baby steps never existed. You know, it's like, hey, let's go run the Olympics. You know, when I'm
Interesting.
like, I'm barely walking at this point.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, and I think that's really good advice with how you deal with it is that you just have to, because spirituality isn't something that you can instill,
Yeah.
beg for, push someone into,
Yeah.
bully someone into.
It's kind of like that with anything in life, really. Though.
Yeah, it has to come from within. And so I think
And
to your
at
point,
the end of the day, you want it to come from within. You don't want it to be something that you've pushed onto someone. You know,
true story, it won't stick.
otherwise it will not stick.
Yep.
And I only know that because that's me. You know,
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah, I'll go a couple times, but that's it.
Yeah.
You know, but now, you know,
And I do. I mean, even with blended life, like I think I've shared this 1,000 times on our podcast, but it was something that, was put on my heart
Right.
before we were even engaged. And I told you about it. And it was something that, and I started Instagram and you were not involved at all. And it was something that I constantly prayed about and was just like, let our marriage be used
Yeah.
for good. And
that
if this is
time-
what you want, like
Yeah.
open these doors. And, I prayed that it'd be put on your heart too,
Yeah.
because I
Well,
can't
at
do
that
this
time,
without you.
I didn't have the vision
know?
for it like you did. I saw what you were doing and I thought it was beautiful, but it was very writing based. And I'm
Yeah.
not a writer. I'm a visual person completely.
Yeah.
So it was very writing based. And you really just had it. You were just like, hey, I'm going to write this stuff. And you were doing great. And there wasn't a lot of invitation there. And there wasn't a lot of need, but we had talked about it.
Well, it was
And I-
something, again, I knew I could not be like,
Right, but I hadn't
put
found
it
my
on
place in
you.
it yet, too.
Yeah.
But as soon as it was put on me, it was like, oh, here, I've got the whole tech side to this. You know,
Yeah, you do.
I've got some ideas.
Yeah.
You know, let's start a podcast. Let's start a video series. Let's,
Yeah.
we've got
But
all
again,
this.
and same with like spirituality, it's something that I super too, like your ex-wife, crave.
Right.
I really want to be led spiritually. I
Yeah.
really want
And we work on that, and that's
yeah,
something that we're working on.
but it's not like I get that I can't beg you.
Yeah,
And I can't
right.
I can't shame you. I can't tell you, "Oh my gosh, I can't believe," and there's it's a lot of just like being patient.
Right.
Being
We also
patient.
just need to find our way too, and the way that it works for us,
Yeah.
the way that it works for me, the way that it works for you,
Yeah.
and then it'll happen naturally, and it'll stay like that,
Yeah.
and continue to grow.
Yeah. So any final lessons from you that you've learned in your marriage?
Yeah, to give my wife a chance to speak and tell me her learning points.
It's hard for you to ask me questions.
Because I never
really
get
is. It's
a word
like-
in edgewise.
To ask a question?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that I made a lot of mistakes. Our marriage didn't end because of infidelity or addiction or anything super. I mean, it took two of us to end it. And so I think
As
part
do
of
most marriages.
Yeah, I think part of reflecting on my marriage is, I guess I've had two failed marriages, right? So that's been a really hard pill to swallow. It was really hard when my first marriage ended. People always give me a pass for it because we eloped. I was 18.
Yeah, it's funny. People are always like, "Oh, we don't count that one." I've heard that said like.
I was more heartbroken when my first marriage ended than I was my second marriage ending.
Well, I think you were over your second marriage. Your first marriage had just begun, and you really, from what I've heard, have had no say in it.
Yeah, no. I had no say in it, and I was blindsided. I didn't even see it coming, the end of that. And it just turned my world upside down. And so I think the lesson from that, which is kind of, in the Bible talks about it. My first marriage, I would say the lesson I took away from that was guard your heart.
Okay.
Because in the Bible even,
Guard.
the Bible talks about that. But I think that it's not being young and naive and so ignorant that anything could happen to you. I think a lot of people who get cancer are like, oh, I never thought it could happen to me.
Yeah.
I think you get complacent and you get...
That's something I'm starting to learn a lot as we get older.
What?
I think that just comes with wise, that you're not invisible. Like anything can happen to you.
Yeah. And I think that I took a lot for granted, and I was just, and I think also one thing in my first marriage is I really wanted a child right away. Like right away. I was ready. And that was like a big...
Weren't you like 14?
I was 18.
Oh.
But that's all I ever wanted was to be in love and have a marriage. That's all anyway, been chasing love forever. So I think so. My first marriage ended, and that was really, really devastating. And I learned a lot about myself. I learned how strong I was to come out the other side of that. Like I didn't get out of bed for days. Like my mom had to come get me. It was broke. I was so broken.
I had some
more
relationships like that, like boyfriend girlfriend relationships that were like years long.
Yeah.
And that's something that when it's going on, and I'm sure most of you can relate if you've ever, if you dated in high school or college and had,
Yeah.
it's one of those things that you're like, especially as a kid, and, you think you're all grown up and whatnot at 16, 17, 18 years old, but you're still just a kid.
Yeah.
And you have so much going on.
Nobody can tell you different.
So much life. But so something like that happens, and you're like, how am I ever going to make it out the other side?
Yeah. And so my second marriage, what I will say I learned about that marriage is two wrongs don't make a right.
Yes.
So we brought out the absolute worst in each other. And in a marriage, in the beginning with my ex and I, my most recent ex-husband and I, what I found is challenging. It was a challenge, right? And I found that exciting because every conversation was like a debate, and that really excited me because I thought if we were debating, that was like, intellectual, and that was
Were you
super
guys-
stimulating.
Were you
and
master debaters?
You want to know about our masturbation life?
Master debaters.
Anyway.
Anyway.
So I learned that, opposites may attract, but I don't often think that it is lifelong. I think that you get sick of something that I wish I would have known before I got married is to sit there and say, is this going to bug me 10 years from now?
Yep.
Is this habit going to bug me 20 years from now? Can I deal with the constant arguing 7 years later? And what?
Well, that leads to nitpicking too, where all of a sudden everything's an argument, so everything's a challenge, and now you're literally picking at everything.
Yeah.
And it's just not healthy in a marriage or relationship.
Yeah, so I learned that opposites attract, but I would just tell people that really beware of that. And I learned that, so one of the mistakes I made in my marriage to my children's father was I was really all about me. A lot of the times I was so miserable, and I don't know if you can relate to this, but our marriage got intolerable to the point where, like you, I would go do my hobbies. But my hobbies were dancing. That's what I love to do. And
on a pole, getting money thrown at you?
No. Oh. Although I was really hot at 22, you guys. If you would have seen me at 22, you would not even believe what was going on.
Look at what can happen in 2 years to someone.
That's right. I'm only 24.
Yeah.
Thanks, love.
I thought you were 20.
Oh, shoot. Sorry. But I learned how I was selfish when I got angry and when I shut down and when I was miserable. My knee reaction was, I'm going to go make myself happy.
Yeah.
So if you're not going to make me happy, I'm going to go do me.
I think that's honestly...
that was really devastating to my marriage.
Yeah.
Because
I think that's what happened partially, like talking about this right now. I think that's partially what happened in my relationship too. She just had a different type of self-control than you have and went so much further,
Yeah.
I think that happens in a lot of marriages.
Totally. But what happens is when you go do you, even if you're in a happy marriage, the dangerous thing about not having hobbies together and doing life together is that it just puts more distance between spouses. So for me, when I was like, I'm really miserable, I got to go check out so that I don't have a mental breakdown, I just totally separate myself from my husband.
Yeah.
And that was really, really devastating. And devastating because it made me, one, I was like, I can live without you.
Yeah.
I'm happier when I'm doing my thing away from you.
Yeah.
And, I enjoyed I got flirted with constantly, and I liked it.
Weren't you hanging out at the dog park?
Yeah. But I just think it opens doors. Also the more time you're spending doing things away from your spouse, which you need to do, don't get me wrong.
Right.
But it shouldn't be out of balance. It needs to be you're with your spouse more than you're not. You're doing family life more than you're not.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to escape every chance I got, whether it was with girlfriends or going to Vegas or going on girls' trips or whatever it was. I just wanted
Sunday
out.
Brunch.
I do Sunday brunch still. But anyway, so I think that was a huge thing that I took away was I'm very mindful not to do that with you.
Yeah, and vice versa.
I'm very mindful to be present, to be in it, and to not be selfish.
Yeah.
Like I've trained my mind, and people who think you can't retrain your mind, you're mistaken. You can absolutely.
Yeah, it takes it's all about habits
your mind.
and patterns. It's just like going to the gym, If it's gym something you used to do,
brutal.
She's a 5 a.m. gymmer.
You would think I would look better. I'm working on it.
Great. But it's something that you train your mind. And I totally get that because you train yourself to do things differently. I mean, I used to be a full blown car guy where we were doing car stuff, 99% of the day,
Yeah.
day and night. We're constantly at car shows or at the racetrack or,
Right.
I haven't been to the racetrack in how long now, I don't go to car shows like I used to. And a lot of that's just because I put my family first, there could be a meet going on literally half a mile away. We hear the cars going, on the main
Yeah.
street. I'm just like, nah, we got stuff to do.
But
Or
I
we
think
have
it's
nothing to do.
important that you do things that you like to do, because I think that if you go too far the other way, where you are so codependent.
Or do it out of spite and become resentful. I've seen that happen too.
Yeah, I mean, you can be resentful because you don't do that.
Yeah. And you're
Even
like,
if it's not asked. Like, I don't ask you not to do things.
Right.
You choose not to, and I trust.
yeah.
I trust that you
But also,
choose
if I
not
ever,
to, and
it's
you
not like I'm not allowed
gonna
to.
hate me.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm like, hey, I'm going to go do this. You're like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
Like,
And
have
I
fun.
will say, I really miss a crowded Vegas dance floor. I miss being I will say, I miss being drunk on a dance floor with not a care in the world, and I am just lost in the music. That is my most happy place. I'm not even kidding.
No,
But
I'm just picturing this because I know this side of you, but I
if you
don't
guys
know this side of you.
yes, he has never seen me dancing in a club. And girlfriends, can I get you? I mean, you guys know me. Anyway, but I think that what I've learned, especially I pay attention to your previous marriage, and I try to be mindful not to touch nerves that were hit from your past relationships. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's
I
something
try
that
to
I
be
think.
mindful about that too. And at some point, it's not appropriate for
Well,
me.
also learning from not only our own past, but learning from each other's past. Like I pay a lot of attention to you about things that you complain about
Yeah.
or have mentioned, and I try to not do that type of stuff. Not, be that person.
Yeah.
And some of it, it is what it is. But if you can learn from not only your own mistakes, but you can learn from your spouse's past
Yes.
and their past horror stories, that will get you so far too.
Yeah, I think it's
You know?
really important
don't
that
have to-
you learn your spouse before you marry them. Like, if you're getting remarried or marrying someone who's been married before, I think it's super important to understand why marriages came to an end, because it will give you such insight to what is going to be acceptable and what is going to cause problems, what's not going to be tolerated. If you were cheated on, there's going to be insecurity issues. So you're probably not going to be super stoked if your spouse goes out to a nightclub.
Yeah.
I mean, and I don't know. So I think there's a lot of maturity that comes with being married more than once. You learn those life lessons.
I feel like a lot of that should be common sense,
It should. It's not.
but it's not.
No.
Because going back again in hindsight, I'm like, I should have known better,
Jess
I
wants
shoulda.
to go to Vegas.
I saw
See
that. I
you
was
there,
just-
boo.
I was just
Don't
reading
even
that.
tempt me with that. Oh,
Yeah.
it'd be so fun. Little poolside action during the day, a little dancing at night.
I just got invited to go to Vegas.
When?
2 nights ago. You were snoring.
Oh, dang
One
it.
of my good buddies is like friends with like Marshmallow and Borges and all like
Oh, he's name dropping people.
yeah, like all those big name DJs. But like, hey, come out, let's go hang out with them. He's working on some stuff with them, and then in the line of work that I do, I'm like, dude, that could be pretty rad.
Are you going to go?
No, maybe, but it would be one of those things that I'm not going to go by myself. Like if it's like I'm going to go, like, hey, you and I, let's go do this on a weekend. Let's go figure out who these people are, what the scene is, see if that would work as a business opportunity. Because it also something that I've learned is my business opportunities and my business habits have changed a lot. I used to spend weeks in Mexico, if you guys don't know, I film for a living. We do, we've produced a lot of the Monster Energy stuff that you see on the YouTube channel. So we spent a lot of time out filming all this fun extreme sports stuff.
Desert racing.
Yep, stuff like that.
Stuff like that.
But when you have a family, it's not even that the lifestyle. I feel like you can be around a type of people, and I'm not saying that's necessarily what it is, but a lot of it is portrayed that way. And you can totally have a family and be fine off, you know? And that's something that used to happen in my marriage, my previous marriage, is I spent a lot of time on the road with this traveling circus, with this traveling like freestyle stunt riding, you know, doing wheelies, this group of, you know, motorcycle riders that were just insane. You know, a lot of them had those model girlfriends, and it was kind of that lifestyle of, not all of them, but a few of them. And that's how that scene gets portrayed.
Mm-hmm.
However, I was married and had 2 children at the time. I never had an issue with cheating, with infidelity, with being
Yeah,
wrapped
but were
up.
you tempted?
No, I mean,
He says that.
no, really though.
No.
I see how people could be, but it's not that. I think people are smart enough to put themselves in positions, and I was
Mhm.
never in that type of position. Now, did I get accused of it? Yeah, a few times, you know, but I'm like, it couldn't have been
Like
further.
accused out
It,
of the blue without any real facts?
yeah, yeah.
Like there was no evidence.
No, there couldn't have been. There was nothing that happened like that, you know. And, you know,
Interesting.
for instance, we'd be down in Mexico and we'd be filming the Baja 1000 or the 500.
Yeah.
And um, the crew, the guys that work with me, they're younger than me, you know. And you know, I was probably, what was I? I was late 20s doing this, and they'd be like early 20s, you know. So they're all out at the big major nightclubs and the bars and everything, you know, downtown, you know, in Mexico and in
Yeah.
Sonata, and they're partying it up after the races and whatever. And I would always stay back at our place, and I would load our footage. I would start our edits. I would get a jump on it, you know, and these guys would come rolling in at all hours of the morning. And there are some insane stories that did happen, you know.
I've heard a few like
Yeah, which are
you
just,
can't make this
you
stuff
can't
up.
make it up.
Yeah.
So, you know, yes, it's a good time, but you know, again, like if you trust your spouse
Yeah.
and you truly know your spouse, I think
Well,
dig deep down inside of you, you truly know your spouse.
yeah, but I also think you have to flip it because there's a level of what's acceptable in every relationship super
Right.
different.
Right.
So there's not a measuring stick that can be used across the board here.
Yeah.
So between you and your spouse, you know, what's acceptable looks different in every relationship, and that's totally fine.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think people should judge that. What works for you works for you. But I will say, I oftentimes, when I get tempted to go do something, I'd be, you know, for instance, dance floor in Vegas, right? Let's talk about that. Yeah, I dance with guys. Guys will come up and put their
Well,
hands
this
on
day
my...
and age, you never know.
Well, I don't do that, but you know,
More threatened by a
so
female
let's just
these
say, like,
days.
if I'm dirty dancing with a guy on a dance floor, you know, clothes. I mean, there's no cheating. Is that cheating? Well, first, I don't know. We've never even had this conversation.
Right.
But here's what I think, and this is something I didn't consider in my previous marriage. You know, I felt like I'm not kissing anyone.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not having sex with anyone. I'm not touching anyone's private parts. So I didn't feel like
With
it
your
was
hands.
cheating. Right.
Right.
You know, he's humping air for those of you who can't see what's happening right
I
now.
never touched her.
But my thing is, it's super fun to sexy dance. It's my most favorite thing in this world. However, I sit here and I'm like, would I be okay if I saw you doing this
The
in
roles
a
were
club?
reversed.
Absolutely.
Right.
And I would cut a bitch.
Oh, wow. Now we have another Explicit episode. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Viewership is going down by the moment.
But I think about that. Like it would invoke, and a lot of women aren't like me, and a lot of women are way more secure and don't really care. I'm not that woman. So I can't certainly go in good conscience, go do stuff this is a measuring stick I have for myself because of lessons I've learned in my previous marriages. You know, I can't go and do something if I would not be okay
Right.
with you doing that exact same thing.
Right. Which is like the same.
I think that's just a safeguard for me because I am
This is that
so,
word edgewise thing I was talking about.
but I'm so committed to like, I don't want to be divorced again. I do want a love that lasts forever.
Right.
I don't want to go back and start dating ever again. I don't, and so even like, I don't engage in flirtatious banter with men anymore. I used to. I knew I wasn't going to cheat. I was never a cheater. I've never cheated on anyone in my entire life. So, but I don't think it's appropriate. Like if I found out
Yeah.
you were engaging in flirtatious banter with a girl,
Right.
I would have a problem with that.
Right. Yeah.
Truly, like I would.
And I think that's where people just need to hold themselves accountable.
Well, I think women
know?
I think women have a double standard a lot. Like I have a friend who would absolutely go ballistic if her husband was undressing a girl with his eyes or flirting with her or even discussing her to his male friends.
Yeah.
In a sexual way.
I see where you're getting. Yeah.
She would flip out.
Right.
Yet she talks about like
the same things that you just described.
yes, in reverse. And so I think women oftentimes have this double standard where we can flirt, we can show our TNA, and we can jiggle on guys and everything. But if we really did see that in reverse, we would have a huge problem with that. And, or are we allowed, or can I be in a situation where there are half naked men around and I'm just
right.
Like, is that cool?
Yeah, no. And that's
Then,
exactly like, you know,
we can't have a
that's
double
the thing,
standard.
I used to get accused of all kinds of stuff. I'm 38 years old. I've never stepped foot in a strip club. I'm sure a lot of people can say that, and I bet more men can say that than women from what I hear. But that's the thing is like, if you hold yourself accountable, that's where it starts.
Yeah. So I think that you need to I think that's a huge lesson I've learned and I try to live out in our marriage now. Jessica, who is a friend, and we can go into that later. I should bring her on our podcast sometime.
Yeah, that'd be awesome.
That would be amazing.
Is it going to be a call-in? Is this?
I don't know. Maybe we fly to Colorado.
Yeah, from Colorado? Okay.
Yeah.
Hi, Jess.
I've
never met her.
It would just be it would just be funny.
Yeah.
We should totally do this. Anywho, she had asked, like, post-divorce, what are some coping mechanisms, or what did you do for self-care, or how to make yourself, like, how do you get through that? Like, what do you do?
Create new habits.
I hope I'm saying this right.
Yeah. I think a lot of people don't
question.
create healthy habits. They dwell on things. They do what you talked about earlier. They go out and they do them. Well, you know what? And what's the saying? YOLO. Like, they just go for it.
That is so 2000. I can't even believe you're bringing
for it.
YOLO.
You just called
I'm
someone
going to get you
boo.
a shirt that says YOLO.
I'm with YOLO.
YOLO. Oh, my gosh.
I'm just making fun of people for saying that. I've actually never really used that word or that term
You
outside
just
of
did
this.
to everyone,
outside
buddy.
of this being, like, funny about it. Anyways.
That was funny.
Anyways.
Dude.
You just called me dude.
Dude.
See?
I say dude 20 times a day.
I know.
I talk to my daughter like that. I'm like, dude.
Uh-huh. Dude, you can't have pasta for breakfast.
Dude. Okay, so what are some things you turn to? It's actually, ironically enough, what did you turn to when you went through your divorce?
What? I turned to a lot of things.
Okay,
I created
you joined like a men's group at church.
Yeah, I created new.
The very thing that.
Yeah, I created new healthy habits, which I think a lot of people, before you started making fun of me for saying.
Jess just chimed in. Well, I just want to get to the point of the question. Mm-hmm. For self-growth and development, what did we do post-divorce? I hope I get to talk.
I hope I get to talk.
You've
Go ahead.
been talking this whole time.
I know. Finish my
I've got
sentence.
to say like 3 things I learned from my marriage, and we're almost wrapping up now.
Because you wouldn't stop asking me questions. You just wanted to keep talking.
So go ahead. What did you do?
Create good habits. Most people don't create good habits. Or
Specifically,
I wouldn't say most
what
people.
did you do?
I started running mountains. We live in beautiful. about all I can say good about California. We live in
We
beautiful
live on the
California.
central coast of California,
Yeah.
for those who don't know, like on the coast, right near the beach. And
Directly between Los
Yeah.
Angeles and San Francisco. both
yep, in the
directions.
middle.
Yeah. So we have huge mountains, that are,
All the people in Colorado are laughing that you just said we have huge mountains.
well, compared to a place like Michigan where they have
Okay,
bumps,
yeah. We do
Um,
have ridges.
Yeah. And if you
And
go up north into
hilltops.
California, we have huge mountains.
All right.
Valley Girl. Anyways,
Oh my
so
gosh.
I started running mountains and playing hockey again, which I had been playing hockey since I was 4 years old. And when leading up to my first marriage, that kind of fizzled out and I stopped playing for quite a while. So finding my way back to that, which now is my great form of exercise that I do multiple times a week. And I'm not a gym person. So being able to go play hockey is great. And being able, to
Run
get out,
mountains, like
Yeah.
go be active.
ride bikes, mountain biking,
You ran to San Luis once,
Yeah.
or a lot.
To
I don't
pinpoint
know.
exactly where we are.
Oh.
Yeah,
well,
I've put on my shoes. I shouldn't say like I have a long time ago and gone out and ran 30 miles. Like that. That was something that was like I need to vent. Some people will go out and binge drink in that type of a moment. That's where I'm like, people are like, I can't take life anymore,
Yeah.
and they want to do an extreme.
yeah.
That was like put on my shoes and go run 30 miles.
And
Would
I
do that
remember,
today? No,
like,
I'd die.
we kind of connected during this time.
Right.
So I did get to witness that you were super active, and that, you also and your family will attest to this. You did dive into more of a spiritual growth too.
Completely. Yeah.
Like, I think you needed something to hold on to when everything else was crumbling.
Well, and I was trying to make things right. I was trying, not that I needed to make things right, but I was trying to figure out what has been wrong and what has been missing in my life and what were those things that my family needed. And I was trying to correct problems, even though my marriage was at over or in the terms of over. I was trying to look at what did I do to cause this and how do I fix this? Because even if it's not with my wife or ex-wife, whatever she was at the time when that was all happening,
Yeah.
I need to get myself on a good page for my future and
Did
for
you
my
ever?
children.
But you never. Did you think you were gonna get married again?
I didn't doubt that I would, but it wasn't
Oh.
like, hey, I'm freshly divorced. I need to go get married now. It wasn't something I was looking to jump headfirst into
Clearly.
and force someone into.
Yeah. I didn't force you into shit.
I know. I'm just kidding. Mouth again.
I love to cuss sometimes. Stop. Yeah, I definitely, that's really, really good advice. I'll go ahead and ask myself that question.
Okay, yeah, go ahead
Julie,
now.
what did you do for self-growth and development after your divorce?
Ate pasta.
Why, thanks for asking. Yeah, good at questions. I will say the thing that you're not supposed to say ever. Divorce made me a better mom.
Okay.
And I'm going to need to explain myself here. My marriage was so toxic and so miserable. I was so miserable that I was checked out a lot, and I was present for my kids. I was always there for my kids. I don't want people to misread that or get that twisted at all. But I was just living life to get to the next day. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like, my marriage is just like, can this day be over so I can go to bed? Can this day be over so I can go to bed?
Can we say bye to Instagram real quick? We're about to lose them. We're at the 1 hour mark.
Bye,
just a second.
Instagram. Head
Bye, you
over
guys.
to YouTube.
Go to YouTube
We'll
and
see you
finish
later.
watching
We're going to
this,
finish.
if you even care.
Yeah. So
Let it run
anyway, but what I mean by divorce made me a better mom is when my marriage ended, I had my kids.
Right.
Like, I just felt like I
Yeah.
lost everything, and I
Yeah.
had my kids, and
I totally know that feeling. And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
yeah,
It's the one thing that's still whole in your relationship.
Yeah.
Or in your life, sorry.
Can I go?
I'm agreeing with you. See, this is our relationship.
So anyway, um, yeah, I had my kids and I poured myself into being a good mom. I mean, I had a job. So I was able to, when the toxicity of my marriage and the constant fighting and the miserableness went away, when I wasn't clouded with all of that, when that fog lifted out of my life, I was able to clearly just see my children, focus on my kids, and that's what I did. I jumped into just being going to work and being the best mom I can be, and that taught me. I mean, my kids taught me so much. I was open to learning what they had to show me. I never missed anything that they did. I was just able to love them, like purely love them without any negativity. I I can't even I hope someone can relate to me. So that's, the gym has always been part of my life. I continued to work out. I had a career, so my job was still in my life. Church has always been a thing in my life. So I feel like I had like all of that stuff. One thing that I will say, and we're not going to have time to really talk about marriage counseling tonight. Maybe we'll address that on a different night. But I started going to therapy a year and a half before my marriage ended. And so I continued with therapy, and I am a huge fan because it's just nice to talk to someone who doesn't know anyone, who doesn't have a dog in that fight. Now you're not going to talk at all. This is
I
funny.
don't want to interrupt you.
But yeah, so I think that therapy was a real huge thing for me to be able to process guilt and to be able to process the death of a marriage and to be able to process. I had to reprocess the death of my first marriage all over again. Losing my second one was kind of like reliving, it was, I had so many, I just felt like such a failure. And maybe I dealt with like, am I even supposed to be married? Who's going to want me? I'm now a walking red flag with 2 failed marriages. I've got 2 kids, and I just felt like maybe it wasn't going to happen for me. So I think that, like you said, being active, but then also being able to have children and pour yourself into something that is so much bigger than you was the biggest blessing of my life. Like, my children are so blessed that I am the mom I am now because I'm not married to their dad. And I would agree that he's probably a better dad too, because we were miserable anyway. I'm done.
Can I speak now?
Yes.
So part of that I disagree with.
Okay.
And some of you might feel the same way. And then this might start a little bit of a debate before we close out.
Oh.
But I think that when you jump so far headfirst into any one thing, including your children, which is what you've done, it has made it so hard for you and I to connect properly. And what I mean by that
Interesting.
is, don't interrupt me. What I mean by that is that when you say you put your children first,
I didn't say that. You just said that. I never said
sorry.
that.
When you say however you phrase, I'm sorry. I'm a good listener.
Because
I'm not a good paraphraser.
that is like you're accusing me of saying I put my kids.
I'm not saying you're. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Let me rephrase that. When you say that you are always there for your kids,
Yes.
you are always there for your kids.
Yes.
And that comes before anything. And I mean to the point to where if there's I don't know, without going into it in too much depth and creating too much of a problem.
I think the problem's already been created. You already drew a line.
We're already at the end of our podcast here.
Yeah, you already drew this line. Go ahead.
Yeah.
Walk over it.
No, but I mean, you truly it has caused us to connect a lot slower than I think we ever should have. I think that you and I finding our place with children in between us has caused a hard place, because a lot of times my son comes between us, and I think a lot of times your children come between us. And I'm not saying in between us as in like an argument or a fight, but I'm saying that our children, so for instance, you and I connect great when our kids aren't here and they're not around. It's our one-on-one dates. But then our children come home and I feel like we're complete strangers sometimes.
It's like, see you next week.
Yeah, because
Totally. I feel the same
kids
way.
are the forefront.
Yep.
What do you need? You guys need lunch food. You guys need dinner. You guys need sports.
You guys are so needy.
They're so needy. But,
yeah.
you know, you wouldn't miss a doctor's appointment for your kids. You wouldn't miss, you volunteer at school for your kids, you know, and you haven't taken, up until like the last 2 days, you haven't taken a lunch break at work.
Yeah.
You know? So you and I used to spend afternoons together, and not a lot of time, but we'd spend an hour in an afternoon having lunch or hanging out or going on a walk. And then all of a sudden it's like, I can't do this anymore. But you always find time to, you know, go volunteer in your kid's classroom and get out of work for a play or a performance or an awards ceremony. So when I say you put them first, and that, you know, going back to what I misquoted you on, that's what I mean by that, where you really put them in the forefront and their needs and I'm not saying that is a bad thing. I think that it's awesome. You literally show up for everything. And I feel like I'm a number one dad when it comes to showing up for things. But I feel like if we put our stats next to each other, I'm like, you do all the extra credit stuff too, you know, where I'm like, I missed my son's open house tonight because we had a podcast going on. You know?
I left my daughter's open house halfway through because we had a podcast.
Right. I'm not trying to make this an argument, you know?
You were talking about putting stats next to each other.
I'm just saying, like,
putting my stat next to yours.
Right. But if there was something where it's like this was the exact same time, you were able to make that work out perfectly, you know, where I'm like,
yes, but I offered to cancel tonight's podcast. I
of course.
offered to do it later.
That's not what it's about. I'm just saying, be careful. My point to this is it's taken us a lot longer to connect because we are so invested into our children.
But I think that is marriage in a blended family.
It
you know,
totally is.
I mean, you wrote a letter to somebody about our blended family, and you called your son your best friend.
Right. That's what
Not
yes.
me.
Yeah, right.
So if you want, I mean, we could flip that script too and say, you know, I'm not your best friend, your son is, and that's really hard for me. That's a really hard
but in context
to swallow. Like your nights are spent down playing Fortnite with your son. We don't hang out.
Right.
You're down with your son every night when we could be hanging out.
That's not true though.
Every night.
Because I was upstairs at 9:30 last night, and
what did you do up till 9:30 last night?
Finished up stuff. I wasn't.
Yeah, I mean, like my point is that if you have free time, you're bonding with your best friend, doing your hobbies, like wrenching on things, you know,
sometimes,
going places.
But also laying next to someone snoring is
before that.
Right. But there's also
before that.
Yeah. But
so I'm just saying, like, yes, I do extra credit stuff, but you know, I feel like it's yin and yang. I feel like it's equal. I feel like it's different. But I do agree that I see your point, how my attention to my children's lives take away from my attention to you. And I would say that your friendship with your son takes away from your friendship with me.
So maybe that's something we need to work on.
So I think it's equal but different. But I hear what you're saying. I just think that you have to extend grace.
You hear what I'm saying, but no?
No, I don't even say but no. I hear what you're saying, and you too, babe. Kind of a thing. There's nothing.
I know. I haven't started it yet.
Oh.
So
there's that. What a fun ending to tonight.
Yeah. No, it's a good thing though. I mean, it's healthy to talk about.
Can you tell
things.
we don't talk about stuff outside the podcast?
But we do.
We don't
I
even
feel like
have conversations.
I feel like
outside.
we're both. Yeah, because we're busy dealing with our kids.
I'm dealing with my kids, apparently.
Yeah.
So there's that.
So if you guys deal with your kids on a regular basis, over your spouse, let us know.
I'm going to bed.
She's going to go snore. I'm going to go
Yep.
play Fortnite. No, not really. I have so much work I have to do now. But let us know how you guys deal with this. I'm lost for words now.
Yeah.
So
Awesome.
I'm not even getting a kiss goodnight.
Nope.
So you guys send us some kisses in the comments. Good night. But thank you guys all for tuning in.
Look, hey, before you guys go though, follow us on all the ways: Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. I'll update you on social media when we're moving our podcast to, in case you just like the live thing. And then also let us know if you like it live versus, recorded and edited. I like it better live because this happens. We can't, edit this out.
Yeah, I can't edit
we might
this
have.
out.
Should
Yeah.
had we recorded this earlier.
Yeah.
Anyway, whatever. This is us. Thanks for joining us, you guys. We'll see you sometime next week for sure. I just don't know when yet.
Right.
I'll let you know.
All right. Thanks, you guys. Bye.
Bye.